Advocates of globalization argue that expansion of exports of labor-intensive manufacturing lift many people out of poverty in developing countries.
H&M wants to make a positive contribution to the world. As a long-term buyer in the textile industry and seller in many markets, H&M contributes to international trade. Trade is particularly important for developing countries to take part in, as the jobs, growth, and development it brings help lift people out of poverty.
To many, India's 7% GDP annual growth is enough to believe that globalization and India's integration into the global market has been greatly beneficial in reducing poverty in the country. However, this fails to account for the fact that India has some of the highest income inequality in the world, as well as persisting poverty for the majority of its population. Inequality in India is growing at a staggering rate. According to an Oxfam report, in 2017 alone, the top 1% of India's population owned 73% of the country's entire wealth made that year. India is operating on a general trend that is happening worldwide, and this trend has to do with the pursuit of neoliberal economic policies. According to the World Trade Organization, the implementation of neoliberal policies by the Indian government was the best way to create faster economic growth and therefore greater social equity. With external pressure, coupled with a huge debt crisis in the late 1980s, the new economic policy was implemented in India in 1991. The policy meant the liberalization of both the export-import policy and the rules for foreign and domestic investment, and a reduction of the government's role, which ultimately led to the privatization of capital. The problem with the new economic policy is that about 72% of the population in India is rural, directly or indirectly depending on agrarian economies. This large agrarian population in India is the true loser of neoliberalism in the country. After 1991, the Indian government made special economic zones which sought to utilize fertile land for industrial purposes. This created a large displacement from rural regions to urban centers. This displacement has caused overpopulation in the country's cities. This overpopulation is associated with the large amount of slums in India's urban centers. A slum is defined as a form of informal housing that is unsafe or unhealthy, is overcrowded, has limited or no access to basic services like water, toilets, and electricity, is structurally unstable, and has no land rights. Almost 1/3 of India's entire population lives in slums.